Hi, welcome to the coaching show or the coaching game, actually. Sorry. I'm Laurie Lawson, and tonight my guest is Tracey MacDonald. Hey, Tracey, how you doing?
Hi, Lori. Hi, thank you for having me tonight.
Oh, I am so thrilled to have you. I can't even tell you how much I have used the book that you've written, but we'll talk about that in a second. Let me just let you know that Tracey is an international life, leadership, and mentor coach. And she and Ann Papyoti, I hope I said her name right. I love that
Totally said her name
name.
right. Yeah.
I love that. Have written this fantastic book called The Gift of Shift. And we're going to kind of talk about that. And I can tell you some personal experiences that I've had with it already. I'm just loving it. But thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited that you love the book.
Oh, I can't imagine anybody who wouldn't. That's why we're going to try to get the word out here. But first, tell me. I know that you started out because I read the book, and you were a dental hygienist. How on earth did you become a coach? Because my thought is coaching calls who it wants. So how did it call you?
That's so interesting that you just said that coaching calls who they want.
Mhm.
Okay, so then let me just kind of tell you that I would say I was called to it. I would say I was a personal growth junkie since my early 20s. I went to Anthony Robbins' seminar, and I was instantly hooked. I could not get enough of workshops, continuing education, reading books. However, yes, I was a dental hygienist and treatment coordinator for over 18 years. Yeah. And so, and it's so interesting, as you said, one day in particular, I can remember I was helping one of my husband's colleagues' wife with some things that I've learned. And his colleague came to me and goes, "Have you ever thought about becoming a coach?" I said, "You're like the third person that has mentioned that to me." And so when I looked into a certified program, and I came across IPAC and I seen the word energy leadership, I think every cell in my body lit up like a Christmas tree. And I cannot begin to tell you the polls that were like, it was in Miami, and my husband usually never works there, and he happened to be working there that weekend. Like everything just was so aligned, and it was such a strong pull, Lori. And yeah, it kind of unfolded from there. And I absolutely love, love, love coaching.
I have no, this is totally bogus statistic, but I'm saying 95% of coaches that get started had something like that happen. I too, and I resisted it the whole time. I hated the person who did the seminar, and we were laughing at people, and it kept coming back, and it was like, all right, I'll be a coach. It was like, and from there it just blossomed. But that's a fantastic story. It's just the universe kind of says, okay, here's where we want you now. So,
Yeah, it's following those pulls and those breadcrumbs, literally, uh,
yeah, yeah.
when we let go to it, when we
I
surrender.
think it's being sure, it's being open. It's being open to, oh,
Open,
that's a
totally.
possibility.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say that's the biggest word that
yeah,
in my life is when I learned to be open to it.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
And forget about that planning. It's like I have this magnet on my refrigerator, man plans, God laughs. It's like, what's the point? Just go
Yeah,
with it. Yeah.
yeah,
So
exactly.
how did this lovely, lovely book come about? Let's see. I guess let's tell them. Well, how did it come about, and then we'll tell them all the cool stuff that's in it. Not
Okay.
everything, because we want them to buy it, but not everything.
Sounds good. So how it all actually came about. So I met Anne actually in our coaching program, first day, instant connection with her. And she lived in Montreal in the time. I live in Canada, New Brunswick. And so we would fly to, each location, and we did some workshops together. And she was trying to convince me to, we should write a book. And I was like, yeah, little critic. Yeah, I'm not an author. That's not my forte. And same thing, my husband, guy at the bookstore, he's like, you should write, book. again, totally shut that down. And so I was meditating one day, remember, about being open, and it came through as such an intuitive hit, like gift to shift, personal stories. And yeah, and then so I reached out to Anne. I'm like, we're going to write a book. Gift to shift, personal stories. And of course she got super excited because she's been like wanting to do this for years. And it unfolded from there. And so happy that, yeah, I didn't fall back into the fear of, oh, you're not an author, you can't do this, blah, blah, blah.
When you're ready, you'll hear it, and it's amazing. Well, let me just say that this book, I hope you can see, yeah, is designed to be a gift to you. It's the package obviously is on the front with the Tiffany teal, almost, not quite, but quite, and each story has a little bow around it or a key or something, and it's just designed to remind you that this is an offering. Take it, do with it what you will. So how did it get formed? Did you say, oh, we're just going to start telling stories, or what was the thought behind it?
So with the thought behind it, for me, how we thought personal stories.
Mhm.
And again, because there are common themes that most people experience somewhere in their life, most times, right? The theme. And so I literally wrote my stories basically, what would I've loved to known even 20 years ago? Like that, like some of those key insights. And that's how I tended to, again, write my own personal stories, but also, some of the big learnings that came from that, so that again, people hear their own story through someone else, and so that they could grab their own insight and their own learning, and again, accept the gift of what that may be.
It's so interesting because some of the stories, when at first I read through it, and then I said, let me do all the exercises. And some of the stories, it was like, okay, I can sort of relate to that. But once you really get down deep in, it's there's always something relatable. What was the biggest challenge that you faced?
The biggest face in racing and sorry, in writing it, would you say?
Mhm.
The vulnerability of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would say the vulnerability of it. I am a person who's very I want to say reserved, because I'm very outgoing, but I don't tend to share a lot. And now I'm sharing with anybody in the world. Hey, here's some of the stuff that goes on, with me, and some of my own personal gifts, I should say, that overcome or learned. Yeah, it was the vulnerability of it, I would say, was the biggest thing for me. Yeah.
You both were pretty amazing in just putting it out there and being honest and in a very raw sense. It was like, this is what it was. And it was like, wow, that's so I admire your courage on that.
Thank
What were
you.
the rewards of being vulnerable?
Ooh, I think the rewards, you know what, even that, I feel that there was something about letting go of, like, there's nothing to hide, if that makes sense. Like there was something, even a letting go of that, of the story, of vulnerability.
Mhm.
And that was the hugest reward for me. That, and knowing again some of the feedback where people are like, oh my goodness, and so I got this insight and that insight, thank you so much. That's been a massive reward. However, I would say even more so was the reward of letting go
You
of
mean
some.
just you not having to hold it in or hide it or just keep,
Exactly, just
yeah, yeah.
the vulnerability of sharing some of those deeper parts of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
and I found that to just be so amazing that you could do that because we are so concerned about one, will anybody understand? Two, only I'm feeling this, and oh, what will other people think about me? And there's just so many things that can and do hold you back, because I think everybody has a book in them and everybody wants to write a book, but it's just hard to get it out there, and you
Yeah.
did it. You did it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And let me tell you a little bit about the format, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but the format is Tracy and Ann take turns telling stories of life lessons, really, things that they've learned and things that they're working on in some cases. And then at the end of each story, and then they're short stories, there are coaching questions or just questions to help you dig a little deeper into yourself. And then there's a marvelous section with tons and tons of pages, line pages even, where you can tell your own story. So it becomes an educational, it becomes an entertainment vessel, and then it becomes your own story. And the transition is amazing. What was your intention when you were doing that?
I think basically just how you said that is so people can not only get the understanding of the lesson, but for them to integrate it to write out their own story. Because you just said it, everybody has a book inside them and with life lessons. And sometimes it's very deep within. And to get you primed and start thinking, and so getting it out on paper. So again, to connect with that.
Yeah, yeah, and I admire how you managed to do that, because that's the whole coaching process. It's like, not necessarily taking my story and injecting it in you, but pushing a button, triggering someone to go, oh, you know what? Maybe I could work on that, or maybe that was not the best way to handle it. So, how long have you been coaching?
Since 2015.
Okay, all right. That's an impressive amount of time. I won't tell you how long I am, because then that will date me way back there. When people thought I was coaching soccer, they had no idea what I was doing. So, you're coaching? Oh, okay. That was a long time ago. So what could you say are the benefits of um I know the benefits of becoming a coach, because you get the training, but what would you say if someone was thinking about, oh, and I suspect if they take a look at this book, they're going to go, I want a coach. I need a coach and I want a coach. But what if you wanted to sum it up, what would it be, like the benefits that you got from coaching? And I'm sure that's going to relate to other people also.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that you get to step back and really look at what things mean to you. Nothing has any meaning except the meaning you give it. And so meaning those unconscious beliefs, those thought patterns, those emotions that can keep you so stuck. And a lot of times, like with me, I just thought that was who I was. You're on autopilot almost. And when you can actually wake up to how much you have power and how much your thoughts and feelings can keep you contracted, coaching can just help you unlock that, really. Because what's best for you. It's just having someone help you unlock that within yourself. Does that make sense how I'm explaining that, Laurie?
It does. It does. And I'll take it a step further. It's for removing the blocks so you can be you, removing the
Exactly.
obstacles, helping you get the courage, helping you see the insight, because you may know what's best for you. And we all have those little feelings that go, oh, this isn't right. Like, yeah, again, I was amazed. I had someone on the show who was a corporate executive coach and a female advocate. And she told me that 85% of the females who make it to top management quit. And I went, oh, that's ridiculous. And I went, no, I did that. And she did that. So it's not that ridiculous. So, even while you're climbing that ladder or traveling around, something is not being met. Some need is not being met. And you just don't know how to get it out, or you just can't define it. So it's removing all those obstacles so you can do that. Yeah. Explain the title. I mean, the gift of shift. Why? Most people are like, oh my God, just don't let anything change and I'll be just great. You're going, hey, baby, shift. Go for it. How's shift a gift?
As a shift a gift. It is really a mindset shift a lot of times, or just seeing things completely from a different perspective or completely different view. Like if you're on the ground and you're in a helicopter, they're two completely different views, right? So to me, is shifting is, as you said, some people think like, I don't want to do all these changes. It's like, that's not necessarily it. Sometimes it's just you need to get out of your own way to see things a little bit differently. And so to me, shifting is sometimes it's only 2 degrees, and it doesn't even leave you in the same place, years later, you're nowhere near the same place. So
Right.
it's just to recognize, what's sometimes just a shift in thought process. Maybe it's a shift in way of seeing something, or even again, how you're being stuck, what you need to do differently to keep moving forward. I think shift can mean so many, many ways, from hopelessness to hope, as Anne would say in one of her beautiful
Mhm.
stories.
Right.
There's so many ways to shift, recognizing our inner critic, shifting into being more recognizing when it's on the scene, and being your own best friend. There's so many ways we can shift. And it's sometimes not as big as we sometimes think it has to be.
I love that you said 2 degrees, because it doesn't, you're right. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to turn around 6 times and, and there you are. I spent all last weekend, because I was trying to go away on a short weekend, John, looking at a hurricane that, oh, if it shifts 1 degree, we're safe. And if it doesn't, and it makes such a difference, because just that one little shift can set you on a whole new path that was out of the realm of your possibilities before. So I love that you used 2 degrees, because that was my life last weekend, but we made it. So that's good.
Perfect example. As you said, people be like, oh, 1 or 2 degrees isn't a big deal, but you're right. For a hurricane,
Yeah,
that's huge,
absolutely. And I didn't realize that until one of the weathercasters said, all we need is a little shift over this way and it'll totally miss you. It's like, okay, let's go for those degrees and take it one thing at a time. And I love a quote that you use, Zig Ziglar's, that is, today I opened 2 presents, my eyes. They were my eyes. And it was like, oh my God, yes, we have that ability to see, but sometimes I guess we need a new prescription. Oh, that's a good idea. We need a new or a refined prescription, or bifocals, or whatever we need there. Yeah, so I like that. Which story which story was the hardest to write?
Oh, totally, the gift of breaking free.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the hardest story for me to write, for the vulnerability piece of it. That's why it was like, literally, I was back and forth. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to write this. Yeah, because of the vulnerability piece, that was the hardest story for me to write, for sure. Not necessarily write.
Mhm.
It was for me to share. And I think too, why it was so hard is because it's about forgiveness, right? I think the biggest piece of that is that it was my perspective of how I experienced it. And I would never want people to think that I would want them to, like, you should forgive. That's not it. I feel that that's a healing process. And then it's, you don't hit a button and say, okay, I'm going to forgive now. It's more of a mindset complete shift of how you're seeing it and how it impacts your energy, and how it is you're the one swallowing the poison, as they would say, right? Meaning the whole energy around that. So I wouldn't want them to, I didn't know how it would come across, meaning, would they get what the whole legit story was about, regarding forgiveness? Meaning, the whole point to me was, looking at it in a different light. And I'll give you an example, like Oprah Winfrey's quote. She had a guest on her show about forgiveness.
Mhm.
And again, after I was listening to that, I'm like, that's exactly it. That was, again, part of, my process of letting go. And he said it was giving up on the hope that the past could be any different. Forgiveness is giving up on the hope that the past could be any different. And I'm like, bingo, that's exactly it.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Because we think that it's all about the other person, like to let them off the hook, but it's more of, it's our release, really.
That's a hard one to get across, because people think, okay, we all know, turn the other cheek, and that's really not what we're talking about. And it's interesting that was the hardest one for you to write, because thus far, and I'm almost finished with my exercises through the book, that was the most profound for me. And I was saying, oh, okay, and I was going along, and I'm going, and it finally hit me. It's like, what I needed to forgive was myself, for allowing it to happen, for allowing it to carry it on, to carry it with me for so long. It's like, give it up. And that, to me, so your vulnerability paid off big time for me. So I thank you for that. And didn't have anything to do with your story. It was all about me, which is what life
That's the
is.
point. That's the point.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
the point.
So it
I'm
was
so glad that.
interesting. That was your hardest, and that was my most beneficial thus far. So good for you. What kind of feedback are you getting on this book?
We're getting such amazing feedback. My heart is so full, Lori, like just of gratitude. We're saying about, I woke up this morning and I opened two gifts. They were my eyes. Yeah, and such gratitude that I'm experiencing right now because, as you said, when I hear something just like you shared about, that was such an insight, or I got something, so profound from that. That just, yeah, it just fills me up knowing, yeah, that the intention behind it is really being fulfilled, to help other people.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to ask, what are the plans for Tracy and Ann? Is there anything in the works?
At this point, we've been talking, different things, possible another book, we've talked about different things. At this point, we're going to follow the polls, Lori, and see, which kind of goes back to our first story. What are we feeling pulled towards, and how we want to express it and get it out there. But that's the biggest thing is to get it out there to help people, again, unlock their best life. It really, that's the underlying theme, and helping people do that.
A brilliant job. Let me ask you, and then we're going to talk about your coaching a little bit. Let me ask you, where can we find this book?
It's in, you can find it on Amazon, you can find it at Barnes and Noble, Chapters. I know they have it in some of the bookstores, but you can always order it online. That's a for sure thing. So,
And I suspect it's probably on your website, which is
on my website, yeah, totally. It would be on Ann's as well. It was funny. I was on Pinterest the other day pinning, and Pinterest said Walmart came up, and I'm like, oh, it's at Walmart. So I'm like, I didn't even know that. It was really neat. They're like, oh, do you want to order the gift to ship? And I'm like, oh my gosh,
yeah, I have a few copies of my own. Yeah.
so yeah, it's out there. But yes, very excited.
Well, I would highly recommend it to anyone just to find out if you need to ship. We all know we do, but just to confirm that, and or if not, it's interesting stories. They're very interesting stories. So tell me a little bit about your coaching. What do you do on an individual level?
Yeah, so I do life and leadership coaching. Is the, I would say, the main structure of my coaching. But it's so interesting, Laura. I'd say the common theme that I recently recognized, I'm like, because I mean, I coach different um, niches, I guess, like, young 20-year-olds and, a lot of entrepreneurs. So I'm like, what's the common theme that I find that people, I guess, that I attract. And I would say about 85% of my coaching practice have been through some type of therapy in their life. And they're right, and which is amazing because they're into growth. And there was an issue or an area in their life that was dysfunctional. And let me say that again, the person wasn't dysfunctional. It was an issue or an area in their life that was
I
dysfunctional.
love the way you frame that. Yes.
Yeah. And now they've moved it to functional, and they're like, now what? So they want to go function to optimal. And so now I seem to be that bridge. I seem to be attracting that. As I said, I just noticed that recently. I'm like, I'm really noticing a common theme. However, mostly what I do is, again, energy leadership, about the different energy levels
Mm.
and about life coaching. People come to me for different reasons, but it all goes into the inner world, the inner work, to really help them live their best life. It really does. And I'm sure you recognize that too. It all starts within.
Absolutely. And I love the way you frame it, from functional to optimal, because it does hit, you don't have to wait till you're like dragging on the sidewalk going, oh my God, I need help.
Yeah.
It can just be a little shift, and to use that favorite word again,
Yeah.
that can get you going where you really want to go. And that's the beauty of coaching. It's like it takes you from where you are and moves you forward. And that's the beauty of it all. Did you adjust or notice any changes during the pandemic, which I don't know about you, but it looks like we're having it. It's carrying on. It's going to be here a while. Did you change your coaching in any way, or?
The only thing that changed with me during the pandemic is people that used to come to me in person. I put everything online. That was the biggest shift for COVID with me. I would say.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I found I had people who I didn't have so much like, oh, I want to lose weight, or, oh, I want to advance to the next career. It's like, what do I really want to do now? Because the whole rug has been pulled out from under me. And actually the future is wide open because we don't know, and it's not a lot of planning. So it's like, what can I do with not knowing? And that was kind of fun for me, because coaching, the beauty of coaching is that you can't coach someone without coaching yourself, and you get to learn and help people and get paid. It's like, hey, perfect career, you know what I mean? And that was kind of, it was like, oh, I've had time to think about this, now what? So kind of like what you're saying, it's like, okay, I got over the dysfunctional part of my life, now let's roll on. So same
I
thing.
found that, you're welcome. I found it was such two ends of the stick, like people that were in complete overwhelm, and people, as you said, this abundance of time, and like, I want to figure out who I am. I want to, so it was like that, those two categories seem to keep coming up. Again, there was a lot of shift going on, and
Yes.
need to figure their shift out.
Yeah. A lot of shift. Well, and I think what happened was people, that you chart your path and you go, this is where I'm going, and I'll allow for a little variation. But then the path went away. It was like, oh, okay, the game's changed, or the game is gone. I don't know what it is, but and so it was people just sort of sorting all that out and figuring out, oh my gosh, what now? And so I'm gonna take it on back to this book because we're all shifting here, and just the insights that you're able to get just by sharing a story. I'm like you, kind of. I don't share a lot. It's like, I had such a weird life, nobody's going to get it. But I find when I do, it's like, oh man, there's a community out there of human beings trying to get through this thing called life. So and your book, the gift of shift, just points that out so beautifully, that I would highly recommend it to anyone looking for a shift, no matter huge or little. So
Thank
I
you, Laurie.
thank you.
Appreciate
We've
it.
got like 30 seconds left. Do you believe how fast that went? So
Wow.
I'm going
Yeah,
to tell people that they can find you, unless you've changed your website, under Tracey Mac Coaching. Is that it?
that's right. Tracey
Tracey Mac, MAC,
MAC.
coaching. Put all the C's in there and it'll work. And you can get the book, or you can go to a regular outlet, but you can also find out some of the cool things that Tracey's been doing. And that'll be fun for everybody. So thank you so much for being a guest on the Coaching Game. I thank you again for you and Ann writing the book. It was such a joy.
Thank you so much, Laurie. It was a delight. I loved interacting with you today. It was so much fun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.